What was your question again?
The trajectory of teachers, how do they start becoming mentors rather than students? How do they learn to be a better mentor? What does that look like? We spend a lot of time on students and how they learn, how they sign up, how they change. What about the mentor side of things? What's their arc?
So, how are teachers made? What they go through? What makes them good? What steps they have to go through to become good? The guy who opened my chest and helped with the triple bypass, his name is Brian Kane. He's about 56, 57. He speaks so quietly and so calmly. And when I met him first via Zoom and then in the hospital, I was a little surprised. And then later I realized you have to be profoundly calm to be able to be in the room for about 8 to 10 hours with a crew of 20 people and guide them. So, you have, I suppose, at what level, someone who takes care of your body, who's gone through many years of schooling, many years of training, who's opened a lot of chests, put them back together, hopefully in one piece, been relatively successful. He knows his craft really, really well. Whether he was forced to follow in the footsteps of his father, I don't know. All I know is that to become a good doctor, that's what you need to do. Go to school, be devoted to the craft, be nervous the first time you walk into the room to open someone's chest, not being completely sure of yourself. Then you have someone like me who goes into the therapist office because I have some unresolved issues from the past. And this is, I suppose, a heart surgery as well, but in a different way, that someone wants to open up my history and kind of reveal to me in what ways I've been clogged and in what ways and how everything I touch turns into dust. And it's going to be tough, for me to be able to see all the things I've been trying to distract myself from seeing for many, many years. And I'm sure it comes with a good amount of frustration on the therapist part as well as my part, because I don't want to see them, but I'm forced to see them. Then I suppose if I have some questions about the meaning of my life, I approach Plato. And he's going to do a surgery on me in a different way. He wants to make me understand a few things, not so much about life, about his philosophy. And that's going to be frustrating on his part as well, because language kind of binds him. And because I come from a different background, I interpret his words in a very different way. So there's this constant battle for many, many years. And then you have someone like the Buddha or Jesus Christ. They don't really much care about your physical life. They don't really care what your father did to you. They don't really care about how well you understand Wittgenstein or the ideas of Plato. The only thing they care about is have you found a way to be autonomous, to be alone to yourself, to say, I am the living Bible or the Quran or the Dhammapada. So you have all these different teachers. And then there are those, I suppose, who just don't care, in the sense that They live a very solitary life. They're very quiet. Even if you were to go to them and ask them for advice, they wouldn't give them to you. In case of Brian Kane, the surgeon, he was once a student. And like most of us, he kind of grows up very confused, not knowing perhaps what he wants to do with life. He has an inspiration. Maybe he reads a book. Maybe he watches Bluey on TV. Maybe he watches Young Sheldon. Who the hell knows how people get inspired by what? And he goes to his father, though they may be in Section 8 housing, and he says, "Dad, I think I want to be a heart surgeon." And kind of like one of the teachers of Malcolm X looks at him and says, "Son, we hardly have money to put bread on the table, and you want to go to school and be a heart surgeon? Impossible." It's like Malcolm X telling his teacher, "I want to be a lawyer." And he says, "No, you're black. You can't be a lawyer. Are you kidding?" And despite all the odds, he gets himself to school. And he finds the subject fascinating. And one of the problems or difficulties with, I suppose, being a heart surgeon is you don't really care about their past. You don't care about their skin color. You don't care about their gender. All you know is that there is this heart. And it has some arteries and it's clogged. And this person has made this desire that he or she wants to survive. They want to live longer, perhaps live a healthier life. And he bypasses all those biases and goes to a heart that has no gender, no color, no race, no ethnicity, none of those things. And the truth is, you don't know how good you are. There are many, we have a lot of friends. Good morning, Sam. And they spend many, many of their years going to school to become like a doctor of sorts. The moment they find themselves in the room trying to perform a surgery, they realize they just don't like it. And after 10, 15, 20 years of going to school and being devoted to a certain, I suppose, idea, they walk away from the whole thing and they open up a car wash or a burger joint. So there are a couple of things. I don't think anyone can be a teacher without being a student. And no one knows what sort of a student, first of all, they're going to be. No one knows what sort of a teacher they're going to be. And these are things that are revealed in time. You and I both live in this particular culture, which is, for the most part, a how-to culture. If you do A, B, C, D, you'll get to E. And the truth is, for me at least, it's a mystery. You don't know. I mean, I've gone through many years of many schooling. And I remember the first time I had read the dialogues of Plato, I was very, very young, and I said, well, if this is what philosophy is, that's what I want to do. And so I was very much looking forward to my first, philosophy college class. And it was so disappointing. And I said, well, maybe it's because it's college. And then the four-year school was disappointing. And then I said, maybe it's because it's the bachelor's. Then I went to the master's, and they're all the same. Nobody changes. Just because, the same people who are teaching you or giving you the undergraduate information are the same people who are giving you the upper division classes. Once in a while, if you're lucky, you run into someone who has magic in them. I don't really know how it comes about. I don't really know why out of 20 people in this classroom you're attracted to him or her and not the rest of them. I don't really know what makes a good student, and I don't really know what makes a good teacher. I think it's one of those mysteries that can't be unraveled, understood the right way. All I know is that many people have tried to be like Michael Jordan. Only 5 or 6 are able to. A lot of people want to be like Muhammad Ali. There's only one of them. And I think every craft has maybe 5 or 6 or 7 really good, proficient, talented players. The rest try their best, and they're good, but they just don't have the magic. I don't know why. There is this heavyweight boxer by the name of Tyson Fury. He's like a giant. There's just something about him. I mean, it's a violent sport, granted, but the way he talks, the way he is, the way he just moves in the ring, is very captivating. And that's not what you see, for example, at least that's not what I see in other boxers. And I don't know why he has what he has, you know. Uh, so I think you can have a fantastic idea about marriage, and you can write books about marriage, and then you get into the marriage yourself, and then you get tested, and then you get to see yourself for who and what you are, not ideas, not books. And I think when you get into the game itself, you know, it hammers away all the counterfeit components, and what lives inside you comes out. And you come to realize you're just a pathetic little man you've always been. Nothing about you has changed. You know, and I think in some ways it's really good that none of us are tested. I mean, imagine if Karl Marx was alive to see what would happen to his ideas, you know, or Jesus Christ, or any of these great people. You know, the only person I know that lost hope really near the end of his life was Moses. You know, he was kind of in a forgetful state. Someone tells him something, he remembers something, now grows conflict inside him. He wants to figure out who and what he is. He goes on this quest. He comes back and rescues his people. They go on this long journey. He walks away for about 10, 15, 20 minutes. He comes to realize people whom he's rescued kind of have fallen back into the old habit. And near the end, he just kind of looks at his brother Aaron and says, you know what? I just don't want to do this anymore. Here's my staff. You lead them. They're a complete disappointment. You know, and I think as long as your ideas don't come down here to be tested, you'll be fine. The moment your ideas come down here, you know, let's just say you have this idea that you're going to come to my office and tell me a few things about yourself. And you think of me as being very understanding, very diverse in thinking and feeling and all those things. And you've created this beautiful narrative. I'm going to go to his office, he's going to make me coffee, we're going to sit on the floor, and I'm going to tell him this, and maybe I'll even bring him to tears. And then your idea is tested. You come to my office, I don't give you coffee. In fact, in the office, I'm usually in a very, very bad mood. I don't like to receive people. And now that the ideas have come down and they've been tested, you realize that, well, you just say, hi, Amir, and then you say, maybe I should just leave, and then you do. And then you drop the class. That's how it is. You know, I think maybe that's why people get depressed and they can't come out of it, because they have these fantastic ideas about themselves and life, and life comes down, removes all the spirit that lives in these ideas, and then you're left with nothing. And that's one of the nice things about cults. Cults live in a fantasy realm, you know, and they try to make sure that life never enters into the cult arena. I mean, look at Plato. You want to come to my school? I'm going to interview you. If you don't like math, you're out. If you don't like geometry, you're out. If you don't like art, you're out. You know, I don't really care if you're inspired or interested. You need to know some basics. Maybe the shortest answer I can give you comes from the movie Meet Joe Black, where Anthony Hopkins and his daughter are on the plane, and he asks her, well, do you love Drew? He says, yeah, well, you know, he makes money and you like him. He says, yeah, I like him, but do you like Drew? And ultimately, he looks at his daughter and says, be open. Lightning could strike at any time. And I think that's how good students and teachers are. It's a lightning, and you have no idea if it's going to strike or not. Yeah.
I was gonna say, wouldn't you say that maybe the best teachers never stop being students?
It's true. In being a student, you have a certain longing, you have a certain yearning. There are things you want to understand. There are certain things you want to possess that you don't. And I think if that becomes the core of your soul or the core of your intellect, that you've been infected and you've become addicted to the notion that there are always going to be things out there that you don't know and you want to desperately understand. As long as that has infected you, as a teacher, you're also going to be a student. But I think once you become a teacher and you have that quality of studentship, you're both full and empty at the same time. Students, on the other hand, they're for the most part going to be empty. They're going to be walking around trying to figure out if there is any way they can grasp, understand, touch the thing that they're looking for. Teachers, on the other hand, they kind of have a different station. There is this poem by Rumi. It comes from the first book. بشنو از نی چون حکایت می کند و از جدایی ها شکایت می کند که از نیستان تا مرا ببریده اند در نفیرم مرد و زن نالیده اند سینه خواهم شرح از فراق تا بگویم شرح درد اشتیاق There is this reed. Reed in the Persian world can be used as a pen for calligraphy, or it can be used as a musical instrument. It starts at its life, the reed does, by being very full from the inside. And as it matures, it becomes hollow. It's part of its just nature. It's full, then all the stuff that clogs it kind of just disappears. And so someone goes and cuts the reed, takes it to the garage, drills some holes, and begins to breathe into it. Now, if there's anything that's clogging the reed, you're not going to hear any sound. But when it's unclogged, when it's hollow, when it's clean and clear from the inside, and someone breathes into it, it has this really, really sad sound that comes out of it. Jordanians have it, Persians have it. You can find it in Turkey. And in some ways, it's kind of like really how human beings are. You're full of yourself, you're full of the information you've accumulated over the years. There comes these moments in your life where you just wake up and you feel hollowed from within. And you usually happen to be in a very good mood. Your dad calls and says, so, how are you doing? You say, I'm doing okay, Dad. And he hears this hint of sadness to your voice. And he says, are you okay? You say, yeah. And the truth is, life has hollowed you. And the tone of your voice also makes your father a little sad. And that's the story of the reed, that I know what it means to be full. I know also what it means to be full within my community. I know what it means to be hollowed within my community. Now I've been cut. Now I live in Oakland. I don't see any other reeds. I'm all by myself. And you have this longing inside you. You want to go to your community. And none of us know really what that community looks like. Plato had argued that all of us come from the world of ideas. There is something profoundly divine about us. And down here, we are entertained by the world of shadows. This class, the grade, ideas, people, friendships, it doesn't matter what you touch. Eventually the sun is going to come out and you're going to realize that you wasted your life just being attracted to things that are not real. The Hindus call it Atman. The Jews call it the image of God. Christians call it the kingdom of God. Muslims call it the light of Muhammad. It doesn't really matter what tradition you go into. What they all argue is that human beings are really placed in a very, very strange position. I think T.S. Eliot said it best. A dog is never going to sit and say, why can't I be a cat? And an orange is never going to sit and say, why can't I be an apple? A human being, on the other hand, you have to go through hell. And if the Hindus are right, you have to go through many, many, many lifetimes to kind of be okay with who and what you are. You're not okay with being a teenager. You're not okay with being an adult. You're not okay with being this. You're not okay with being that. And the only solution to our, I think, dilemma really is you're on your deathbed and your only salvation is not Jesus Christ. It's your last breath where you say, I have accepted my life just the way it is. There isn't much I can do. And that's through like 50, 60 years of struggling to figure things out. Only your last breath do you come to accept. So I don't know if that does anything to your question. Probably doesn't. I have a tendency of rambling on. So, yeah. Yeah.
Do you ever go back and visit Iran? Or
No.
You don't know?
No. My grandfather passed. My grandmother passed. The relatives I have, I'm not in touch with. I'm no longer interested really in the country itself. I've lived most of my life out, about 30 years of it. I'm sorry, 50 years of it out. I had imagined, after being here for 25 years and finally being able to go back home, that traveling back home is going to be a very special and interesting and unique experience. That I'm going to get off the airplane, bend over and kiss the ground, because the older you get, you kind of go back to your culture, your tradition a bit more. None of those things happened. I got bored after being there for a week and a half. Sure, you feel at home, you go back and revisit the old memories, but no. And it's good if people can be the opposite of me, But if you can be okay with just going back home and having a great time with your people, with your country, with the food, that's good for you. I think one of the mark of good teachers, really, for the most part, which is nearly impossible. Good morning. Good morning. Give to people what they can receive. One of the problems of public education, I think, is that it has benefits, it has some harms as well. That you have people who don't really have the proper capacity, they're not in the proper place in life, and they're exposed to ideas. And those ideas, instead of helping them, hurts them. It's kind of like Socrates walking around the agora, the marketplace, and asking people if they know what love is. And so the guy who becomes inspired by the question takes the question home to his wife or to her husband. And before you know it, if they wrestle with this question for too long, they'll end up with a divorce. And I think that's one of the reasons as to why cults initially used to exist. It has these high-powered questions only designed to kind of be given to specific students or people, and to kind of protect those people from getting depressed from those questions, breaking them into various pieces, and they're protected, sustained for many, many years until the question blossoms inside them in a very healthy way. If you come to this class, for example, and you become interested in philosophy, really, really interested, it'd be a mistake for you to go and study psychology, or history. You need to go to school and do philosophy. And you need to teach philosophy eventually. Whether or not you'll be good, no one knows, but that's what you need to do. You need to be around these ideas. That's your salvation. That's your Jesus Christ. So, anyways. Yeah, anyone else? Yeah.
It's selfish to somebody you love.
It-
You are great.
Sorry, is it selfish to what?
selfish.
Love. That's they might do that.
I'm trying to think of a story. Let's say that I like you, and let's say that you like me as well. And let's say that our attraction to one another is one of romanticism. We go out to a coffee shop. We do this, many, many times, and I look at you and I say, I love you. And you say, I love you too. At a certain point, and maybe I should have done this the first date, but I didn't, I ask you, so how old are you? And you say, well, because you look a little older, than 19. I say, how old are you? And you say, well, I'm only 25. I say, oh man, I thought you were like 48. And you ask me, well, Amir, how old are you? I say, well, I'm almost 61. Now, one of the things about love is that it's an emotion that's like fire. It consumes everything about you. It starts with a spark, and before you know it, the entire thing is on fire. Okay? Now, the nice thing about fire is that your past turns into ash, your future turns into ash. There is nothing about you that remains. You become a slave to me in a very nice way. And once you become kind of destroyed by this particular passion, it's a curse, but it also comes with a good amount of gifts. You become patient, you become forgiving, you're kind of like a lamb, you become a sacrificial animal. Okay? Now, I happen to be a bit honest. I look at you and say, listen, there is about a 30-year age gap between the two of us. I can already feel my body collapsing. You're 22, 23, 25. You have another 40, 50, 60, hopefully healthy years to go. Do you really want to spend those years taking care of a man who's getting older and weaker and sicker? Is that what you want to do? And of course, you being consumed, intoxicated, drunk by love, you don't really care. You say, no, I don't really mind. I don't mind any of it. But I don't think you really understand what you're talking about. Love, like anything else in life, exists in time. Time eventually will turn your love into like, and then simply curiosity, and then it's just there. Just another thing you got to do with life. Okay? Because I know that you're drunk and you can't see straight, I have to make the most difficult decision to exploit you, to keep you, so that you can take care of me in my old age and sickness, or to look at you and say, listen, you need to go. Now, you may cry, you may whine, you may do all sorts of crazy things, but I have to be steadfast. I say, no, you need to go. And if I'm very clear, and if I know exactly why this is so, then I think this breakup, even though it may be difficult, is the best thing to do. There was a story, I don't know where I read it or heard it. It was about this man who was separated from his wife and 3 kids. And he had a girlfriend. They've been together for 2 years. So the guy wasn't divorced yet. One day, after about 2.5 years, his wife sends him an email saying, listen, I've been thinking, I've been talking to the kids. Why don't we give this another shot? Now, I know you don't have children, I know you're not married, but once you have children, everything about your life changes, and everything about your relationship changes. And depending on what sort of a parent you are, if you're invested in the life of your kids or not, but this guy was. So he goes to his girlfriend and says, I've received a few emails with my wife and been going back and forth. And my kids are very young. I don't want them to end up in the therapist office for the rest of their life. She has asked me to give our marriage another shot. What do you think? Now, this woman, this girlfriend, loves this guy, and this guy loves, this woman. But for him, at least, the kids come first. The guy says to the woman that, no, I think we'll be fine. I'm going to ask for a divorce, and you and I can probably get married, and we'll adopt the kids, and so on and so forth. The girlfriend, on the other hand, because she had come from a broken home, she says, no, you need to go back to your wife. And he pleads with her, but to no avail. She pushes him away, and he goes back to the marriage. The point I'm trying to make is, it really depends for the most part. If you know your situation well, if you know some of the obstacles that are waiting for you in the future, I mean, look, if I knew half the things I know now, I probably would have never done some of the things I did in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. I would just push things away, even though I like being around them. If, for example, you've been depressed and you've been on medication for some time, and everything you've touched turns into nonsense, and you just have been having a couple of good days, and you run out there and you find yourself a companion, and she loves you and you love her, you know how you usually do things. You're good for 2 days and you're bad for 50 days. And you like her, and there's nothing wrong with her. She's healthy in body, mind, and soul. And you know that you're poison to everything that comes into your life. And if you love this woman, you're not actually pushing her away. You're protecting her by the very emotion that now lives inside you. Look at her and say, listen, I'm just no good right now. Won't you go live your life? Once I sober up, once I become a bit more healthier, if you're still single and if I'm single, if you're around, I'm around, they can give this another shot. But I know human beings don't function that way. We are a complete mess. And we are predators in all sorts of ways. You need to kill things to survive. Add to it, we have this other deficiency, which is you need to see your own reflection in other people. So you have no choice but to exploit them, use them. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. That's how things are. Anything else before we go home? Good morning. Good morning.